Hey, welcome back to another episode of these crazy people that just eat meat all the time, can't shut up about it. Here we are again today to complicate matters a little more by discussing things like leaky gut, histamines, and perhaps how long you should hang a steak and call it aged. So Ayani's back, and of course, you guys all know Justin and Raymond. We're always hanging out. So today is the day after Turkey Day here in the United States, Thanksgiving Day. So hopefully we're eating plenty of fresh turkey, fresh roasted turkey. But if that turkey's sitting around in the fridge for a while, it might start releasing a bunch of histamines, huh? What do you think, Ayani? You think that
Yeah,
aged meat might be a problem for some people?
it might. In my case, it does. When I kept it in the fridge for several days, I had way more issues. And now I'm freezing my meat. Just I buy it and then I throw it into the freezer. And then shortly before I cook it, I just take it out 30 minutes before and I cut it even in frozen shape. And then I um, throw it into the pan with animal fat. That's it. So that way I have way less histamine issues.
So for people that are kind of new to the idea of histamines, histamine is a substance that our body produces. It's something that could be in foods, and it's the sort of thing that we associate with allergic reactions. So when you take an allergy pill, you're typically taking an antihistamine, right? I think most people are familiar with that concept. But a lot of people may not be aware that it can sort of accumulate in our food, especially when it sits around getting older, right? So like Ray was just telling us how excited he was that he ordered some double aged steak. And then Corina's like, oh, sounds delicious, but if I ate that, I would probably have a reaction to the additional histamines. So why don't you tell us what a double aged steak is real quick, Ray?
Double aged steak. So I got interested in that recently about older cows. Older cows has a very much yellowish fat around it.
Mm.
So the fat's actually richer and much more flavorful according to them. I've never tried one yet, which I will be getting my product very soon. So that's the part I was mostly curious for. But these guys tend to what they call double age. So they actually hang it for a little longer than normal. I forgot. I think the normal hanging, do you remember, Tom? Is that like either 14 days or 28 days? I don't know. Whatever it is, they double it for the
Yeah,
hanging.
I'm at a loss to find a standard. And I've been in conversations with people we all know where they're like, oh, well, they hang meat for X number of days. And it seems to be all over the place. So some of that meat is fresh, like it goes from slaughterhouse to your plate as fast as possible. And then some of it is actually hung for a week or two. And then I know if you go to a nice steakhouse, I was at a steakhouse one time in Chicago, and I think they said that they got the meat in, they trimmed it the way they wanted it, and then they put it in their meat locker for another 23 days or something like that, and they brought it back to the restaurant and trimmed it again and served it. So I think that just depends, you
And
know.
I hear it's supposed to make the flavor much more intense. Of course, it loses a lot of volume because a lot of
Evaporation.
moisture evaporation. Yeah. So that's why it's so expensive also.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because like I make a lot of jerky. So most of the volume of a steak or anything like that is water. So, I don't remember exactly how much water you lose making jerky, and it's not even completely dehydrated most of the time. But you're gonna lose by weight. I'm gonna guess you're losing like 70 to 80% of the weight. So I'm sure when it's hanging in the cooler, it's losing moisture. But I think one of the other things that happens is the fat tends to infiltrate the muscle a little more. So it actually can enhance the marbling along with the flavor. So.
I just want to something about the turkey. So if you do have some leftover turkey, first of all, if you're a carnivore, your turkey should not be sticking around that long. Just going to throw that out there. I mean, I think over at my house, ours is like basically done. It's basically carcass now. I had one leg a couple days ago because I decided to cook it on Wednesday. And then I had another leg and some of the rest of the wing like last night. And so like, you know, that turkey was pretty much done. But I just found out my new favorite thing is turkey skin on steak. It's freaking delicious.
Wow. Sounds good.
I love the flavor of like chicken skin and turkey skin, always have. And you know, we grew up with a lot of, oh, the skin like is so bad for you, right? And all that stuff. I don't remember why. I guess
Really?
Fat. That's where the
Oh,
fat is in chicken and
possibly.
turkey.
right.
Well,
And
as a kid, I always loved the chicken skin the most, and then the chicken meat is so dry and makes you choke.
Yeah. I remember one time I made some chicken and I was so afraid, so fat phobic and, thinking the skin was bad for me. I was peeling the skin off after it was cooked and throwing it away. And my friend, who was vegetarian at the time, was grabbing it out of the trash and eating it. He's like,
Oh my gosh.
hey, you can't do that. It's the best part. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't it bad for us? And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's the best part. How could you throw that away? And I said, aren't you a vegetarian? He's like, don't remind me right now. So, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame we wasted all that good food,
Mm.
well, I never wasted it. My chicken skin or turkey skin never went in the trash. I can tell you that. That was all you, Tom.
Guilty as charged.
That's a sin. I tell you, that's the best part of turkey.
Would never do such a thing now. I'd throw the rest of the bird away because, turkey, man, it can be dry as hell. Even a moist turkey is pretty dry.
Horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just not throwing in enough butter. Every half hour, you throw another stick of butter on it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was just talking with somebody at work about every time I open a drawer and I see those injectors. You guys ever use an injector to try hydrated turkey?
I think we did it one time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of works, but it still mostly just leaks out all over the place. So, it's like you're in there filling up a syringe with drippings and butter and trying to get it back in the bird all the time. And it's a real pain in the butt. So.
And then your cooking time like doubles because you're constantly having to open the damn oven and inject, and then the center's not getting heated. And yeah,
right.
you can end up with a dry turkey anyway because you end up taking 6 hours to cook the damn thing.
I was at the store and
Is that worth it?
there was a guy like looking for peanut oil. It's for frying. People use it for frying turkeys, which is a giant pain to do. I don't know if you guys ever tried to boil like a 10-gallon pot of oil before, but it's not easy, and it's like a giant fire hazard. And we use peanut oil because it has one of the higher flash points and higher smoke points, so it actually tolerates. And it's not a bad way to get a nice moist turkey because it cooks it so fast. But once you boil this giant kettle of oil, what do you do with it? You're like, well, we just better buy up all the turkeys we can and just fry as many as we can because we just invested $50 in oil. It's not going to keep till next year. So,
Wow.
people get caught on fire all the time or burn their house down all the time doing it. So, but yeah, it's all a big hassle just to have a little bit moister turkey. Perhaps you can just start wrapping them all in bacon.
There we go. Brining. Brining is also a great way to have a moist turkey.
Get some salty brine in that bird.
But you set it in a brine a day before you cook the turkey, and it comes out pretty good. Yeah, I still prefer just slaver it and like get a pound of mustard or the quart or whatever. I mean, not mustard, butter. And yeah, butter. And then just keep lobbing butter on it while it's cooking.
Mm.
It comes out pretty good.
You just get the floor mop and you just
Yeah,
face that bird down.
exactly what you do. So since we're talking about turkey and Thanksgiving, it would have been great to do a video on this yesterday, but day later. So PETA was selling and maybe you can pull it up, Tom. I threw the link in our group chat. But PETA was selling a divider that protected vegans from having to view the turkey while they're having, I'm not even kidding, while they're having Thanksgiving meal with their family. You know, if the vegan is invited to Thanksgiving meal and they want to go, yeah, and it's literally a partition, a little mini.
Are they scared that the turkey has COVID?
So that way they don't have to look at the poor murdered turkey. Yeah, and it's $25. This little cardboard partition used technically for one day was
$25.
$25. Yeah, from
You
PETA.
better buy a good steak with that money.
Yeah, it just, and then inside there were like comebacks for what to say when they're like, come on, why don't you have some turkey? And yeah, the whole thing is like ridiculous. I don't know how that, I guess that company's, I mean, someone must have bought it. I want to meet that person and laugh at them. But yeah, it's just really crazy. Like that's really funny to me. I think it's funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, part of the whole vegan movement is perhaps humans got to be a little too human, right? So instead of realizing that we evolved eating animals and other animals are always eating other animals, they decided we're speciesists, right? And that if we eat another animal, that we're essentially paralleled with a racist or a Nazi or something like that, right? So we think that the humane thing to do is not to eat other animals, but at the same time, somehow that's completely counter to our biology, to nature, to how things have been for 3 million years or whatever. So yeah, there you go. Thanks, vegan. A little partition.
Gosh.
But look how healthy that meal is. I mean, you got your toe.
I had the same thought, like all carbs. Look at it.
You know that's tofurkey, right? Have you guys actually eaten tofurkey? I've actually eaten it.
No, you did not.
No.
Yeah. Well, I had a sister that was vegan, and so for Thanksgiving she made a tofurkey for us to eat, and so I had it was terrible. Like I don't remember liking it. I think it needed
from tofu, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it needed a lot of gravy. If you think turkey breast is dry, just try tofurkey. The tofu turkey. But then what was that? A glass of wine or Kool-Aid? And then the pumpkin pie. Yeah. Histamines, sulfates. Yeah. Very healthy.
Oxalates.
Yeah, I mean, we could all talk about the fact that you're taking squash and turning it into a pie, dumping a bunch of sugar in there, adding a bunch of spices, putting some crust on it. Yeah,
and I wonder if that whipped cream on that pie was the soy cream or whatever it is, because whipped cream isn't vegan. They have a soy one, a soy substitute.
Charity gang, you guys want to? I didn't realize. I thought we were done ridiculing it, but apparently not.
Well, no, I was just making a point that I wonder if that topping on the pie is Cool Whip or if it is the soy alternative, which I've also had.
Yeah, it must be something like the soy. I know the company here in Switzerland, the soy factory, they have something similar, like soy cream.
And it brags about being like 99.7% fat-free on the container.
Seriously.
Yeah, I think people probably recall not that long ago, there was all this talk about, clearing the rainforest. What was it, in Brazil? Where they're growing all the soybean, and initially they're like blaming it on the cattle industry, but it's actually to grow more soybeans to send to China to have the oil pressed out to make more additives for food or fake food, or everything's got soybean oil in it anymore. But obviously a certain amount of that's got to go to things like vegan whipped cream substitute, right?
Mhm.
Whatever
Yeah.
that might be. So tofurkey, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's an instant. You want to complain about ripping the lungs out of the planet by destroying the Amazon forest? Well, that's how they grow soybeans. You know, destroy the soil, dump on a bunch of chemical fertilizer, tear down the trees, and turn it into fake meat or fake cream or whatever, fake cheese. When the real thing's better, and we know that now sustainable animal agriculture can actually not just be carbon neutral, it could be carbon negative. And cows are actually part of the natural carbon cycle. So when you raise animals on the land, you're not actually pulling carbon out of the ground like you are with petroleum products and releasing into the air. It's in the natural cycle of carbon that's there anyways, because the animals eat the plants, then the methane and CO2 they release just grows new plants, and it stays in that cycle the way it's always been, right? But when you grow
Mm.
soybeans, it's not. You gotta get out there with your Caterpillar and your John Deere, and then you dump a bunch of chemical fertilizer on it, and you cut down the trees or burn the trees. Let's just burn down the forest so we can grow more soybeans, right?
Yeah. That's what the vegans don't get. That's the problem, that their animal friendly veganism destroys whole ecosystems.
Yeah, like
And
Lear Keith said,
Yeah,
there's no food without death, even for vegans.
exactly. Everything has to die for something else to live. That's just a natural cycle. And you have to accept that.
For sure. And
and
then the
what do
other
you
thing, go ahead, Justin.
I was gonna move to our other topic, but
Hmm?
so what do you think all that soy does to the gut? Like, do you think tofurkey is good for like the gut lining?
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I think it's even high in oxalates. So then you have like, uh, it will lead to leaky gut. Or, I mean, I used to eat tofu on a regular basis, and then I was so bloated from it, like every time. And I mean, that's a sign, I would say. Soy is not really a food.
Yeah, it's high in plant-based estrogens, so it could have a hormonal impact on people. It's harder to digest than meat because it's plant-based. It's much harder for our bodies to extract the nutrients out of it. So it's a poorer source of things like protein and vitamins and minerals and stuff like that compared to meat. Um, it's soybean oil and the other vegetable or seed oils have been implicated in disrupting the mucosal layer, which lines our digestive tract, and also is tied to leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability because by reducing the mucosal layer or compromising it, food particles can pass through the small intestine into the bloodstream. The tight gap junctions can be opened by certain compounds. That's another thing we were talking about supplements and stuff before, that sometimes they come packaged with things to help them pass through the gut lining into the bloodstream, and those very things are the type of thing that cause leaky gut syndrome. So for people with, leaky gut or histamine issues, which oftentimes seem to go hand in hand, right? We've all noticed that people tend to be more sensitive to histamines and to have leaky gut at the same time. So Ray, you
Yeah.
used to have a lot of allergies, right?
Yeah, I used to have seasonal allergies. And I'm not sure. I had some allergies to different things I ate, but I never actually figured it out. So, but I wasn't going to retest it either. So,
Did any of us here not used to have serious allergies? Corina,
Yeah, okay.
did you have allergies?
Who? Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. The casein, gluten.
I'm sure I was gluten allergic.
Yeah, and then fructans, lectins, FODMAP. That was a lot. Like my body started to react to everything. Yeah, and then there is summer heat intolerance from the histamine issue. There's quite a lot. Yeah. And
So
then what do? You try to identify those triggers and you remove them. So your body is not in constant inflammation and can calm down and actually heal. So that's the first thing. You just remove those foods, and for many the solution is carnivore, and you cannot do any other protocol or way of eating because it doesn't work for your body. You still react to stuff and your body doesn't heal, so you have to go even deeper. And that's when carnivore is really a good solution for many people.
Justin, did you notice that you had allergies that got better?
Yeah, my sinuses are so much better. I'm not dripping and shooting Slimer like gobs out of my nose anymore. Even when I am a little bit under the
We're
weather.
all grateful for that, by the way.
Which rarely happens. But I had a full-on allergy food panel done, and I had a full allergy panel done. The allergy panel said I was only allergic to mold and that there was nothing they can do about that. And I was like, okay, well, that was kind of pointless. And then the food allergy, I think I can pull it up again and share it, but or maybe we could talk about it in depth in another video. But same like Corina, gluten. I was extremely allergic to gluten, soy, a few different other things, a few vegetables I was actually allergic to. But then I think because keto and carnivore wasn't really big then. And so they wanted to put me on an elimination diet, which was basically paleo, but now we know that paleo doesn't really solve the problem because I could eat almonds, I could have nut butters, I could have, spinach and brown rice and kale and all that stuff. And my naturopath said that, oh, that's how I should eat. Tons of stir fries with chicken and as many vegetables as I can put in there with brown rice is what I did for quite a while. Those were a lot of my meals. And then being overly excited about anything that was gluten-free. So I ended up addicted to popcorn because I couldn't really eat like potato chips and stuff like that, because of like the oils and other stuff in it. So yeah, just from one disaster to another, I did get better even with eliminating gluten. It did help, but I really, I could have saved years of more pain had my natural path just been like, oh, because I had no allergies to meat. You know what I mean? But because of the thinking that, oh, you need vegetables and stuff, the meat, like she knew protein and meat was important, but for some reason, I guess because of, all the schools and all the teachings in the nutrition industry, they don't understand that meat is nutrient dense. So it's like, oh, you need to eat a lot of meat for the protein, but the fat isn't good for you and it doesn't have nutrients. So you have to eat vegetables for that. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's still what they preach. Veggies and fruits are important and fiber, and it's actually not. And so much is high oxalates and yeah, that's why it's so difficult to trust a nutritionist because they are programmed in that way, and then carnivore is still not that common knowledge.
Yeah, it's a foreign concept to people, and I try and keep that in mind. Try and mention it that when you hear that there's people that are just eating meat and doing really well, it sounds extreme because it's completely the opposite of what we were raised to believe. But when we go back and we look at the evidence, you guys know how I love droning on about archaeology and biology and even the physics of it, that we really did evolve eating meat, just like that picture behind Ray there. We roamed around eating those megafauna like mammoths. That's what we did for a very, very long time. They were relatively easy prey for us, and it's believed that we got our larger brains. The white sclera around our eyes was a way that we developed to help us communicate with one another without even speaking. Which a lot of animals, they have dark eyes. You can't really see which way they're looking, particularly other primates. Because if I'm not mistaken, we made a shift. All the other primates have 48 chromosomes, and we have 46. We walk naturally upright. We can run on two legs.
Because of aliens. Just kidding.
Could be that whole thing. What was that alien prequel? Was it Prometheus or something?
Yeah, Prometheus, yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, you could be into the ancient aliens thing, and maybe Enki genetically altered us or something.
The Anunnaki, get it right.
Anunnaki came.
There are gods. They created us to harvest gold.
Yep. I mean, that could be, I suppose. I don't really know. I keep trying to keep an open mind. I'm thinking that's a little less likely than we were just wandering around eating meat, and we got this giant supply of fat, and our brains exploded. When Cro-Magnon was like the first fully modern human. They were taller than us, had bigger brains than us, they were stronger than us, not by a lot, but by a noticeable amount. And all our predecessors were smaller and hairier. That's another thing. Why did we lose most of our body hair? Why do we have body fat unlike other primates? We're one of the only primates, if you really consider us primates, that can swim underwater and hold our breath. That's a new thing.
Because we were also spliced with the mermaids, Tom. Didn't you watch that episode?
No,
Okay.
I missed the mermaid episode, but I'll definitely send me the link because I'm gonna watch that as soon as we're done here. So yeah, there's a lot of differences in us, and we have shoulders that have evolved to throw things. Not too surprisingly, doesn't matter that a chimp or a gorilla are many times stronger than us. They can't throw a rock or a spear near as far as we can because they have a different kind of shoulder. They use their shoulders for climbing, so we use them for throwing. So I believe all that preponderance of evidence leads us to the conclusion that this is what we've been eating. And when you look at it through that lens, it's not so extreme or so crazy to think that we really thrive on meat and all these plants are actually problematic, right?
I mean, you look at the Inuit and eating all those seals, and there were probably larger sea creatures that we ate as well. I mean, maybe the occasional whale would wash up and we would chow down on a whale, like a whole tribe or a couple of tribes, probably the whole eastern seaboard went to a whale to go chow down on it.
In archaeology, when they look at the habituation sites where people populated for hundreds or thousands of years, you find lots of empty shells, like some people are eating, clams, oysters, mussels, all that kind of stuff, right? and they were eating sea animals, seals, walrus, and even big fish. And they keep finding more and more evidence. It goes back farther and farther for what they call the maritime. Now it's slipping me, but they're basically were coastal people that went out and fished. So they find fish hooks and harpoons and stuff going in boats that go farther and farther back in time. It's called the Maritime Archaic people. They're older. They keep finding evidence of them being older and older. So those people actually were out fishing and eating marine fish and mammals. So and shellfish. So they did. Yeah.
And there's not a lot of plant life at the beach. I mean, at your typical beach, you know, they have seaweed, I guess.
Yeah, kelp washes up from time to time.
Which we seem to handle pretty well, actually. I think as far as plants, I don't know how many studies have been done, but we seem to do fine with seaweed. It's kind of, you know, as long as it's not processed and stuff like that. But like pure, it doesn't taste good, but I would imagine that we probably threw a little bit of seaweed on our walrus blubber and chowed down or something, maybe.
Well, you know, we could challenge just about anybody. Go down, see if when a whale beaches, you know, go down and taste that whale and then taste some of that kelp. And then, you know, or like I was eating oysters the other day and I was like, man, these are pretty damn good. So I would much rather eat that than, I don't know, a carrot, right?
Oh, definitely.
Carrots.
No comparison.
Yeah.
And I mean, raw oysters, like, you know, people look at us weird because we'll have the occasional cut of raw, or Raymond, I forget if you're doing raw or not. Oh yeah, your aged beef. Are you going to eat it raw or cooked? How does that work?
Of course, if I do the double aged, I am definitely going to try that raw. There's no question about it.
He's going to get all Hannibal Lecter.
I will do cook. I should have 4 ribeyes with it, so I'll be playing around with those.
But, you know, nobody snubs their nose at raw seafood, which is most dangerous. Sashimi, that's cultural. That's
isn't that interesting? Good point.
Raw oysters, that's common.
Raw oysters, yeah.
Very common.
Yeah, most tainted meat is tainted, right? It's been contaminated. It didn't just sit there and spoil and start poisoning people. It usually gets contaminated with some sort of bacteria. So, and that's what's so dangerous about ground beef from large factories, is all that contaminant gets mixed in while they're grinding it up. But for the most part, meat can sit around or even hang around at the right temperature and doesn't become poisonous per se. It may increase in histamines, which most people could tolerate, but it doesn't grow a bunch of bacteria that'll kill you right away. So.
As long as you eat it before it becomes necrotic, I would imagine. But if it starts growing some maggots, hey, that's just extra, you know, extra protein right there.
Bonus protein.
Meat will have mold on the outside that they usually cut off. But even like salami, you could buy a high-end salami. The outside of it's actually been coated with penicillin. So they actually let that grow on the outside as like a protective coating. And cheeses develop protective coatings, you know, rinds and stuff that are enzymatic reaction from microbes. So they have any cheese out there in Switzerland, Corina?
Not sure. Never heard of it.
Yeah, so Swiss cheese is actually a food group here in the United States. I don't know
that. Okay.
Right.
They export everything. Never heard of it. Yeah, but you have also the what is it called? The blue cheese. So
yeah. In fact, my sister
that's edible. That's not toxic. So
yeah, my sister just texted me to ask if I wanted to, if that's what I wanted for Christmas was blue cheese.
Oh.
I think it's usually like a type of gargonzola, right? And it has blue fungus.
Yes.
On it. Even in Italy, it's not uncommon for them to have little worms or maggots crawling through it, right? Yeah, they eat it that way.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, really at a certain point, we should start questioning ourselves. Is it our love for sanitary foods? Is that really even considered food at that point? When you ultra pasteurize your milk and, your cheeses don't tend to grow maggots. I don't know. I mean, it makes you wonder. A lot of cultures that seem very healthy are eating that way. So is it us that's odd?
Well, I
Or at
encourage
odds?
people too who are worried about meat and getting sick from eating meat. Go to like the FDA website, Federal Drug and what is it? I forget. But the FDA website, they have a recall website with all the foods that got recalled. And look on there, most of the foods that get recalled are not meat, right?
Mm.
They're,
Yeah.
it's everything from bread to vegetables to, packaged foods. And a lot of that stuff, you could have plastic or metal, like shavings that got in there by accident. But a lot of plants get contaminated. I know we've had this problem here with things like cilantro and other stuff like that.
Lettuce, our lettuce, we have some
Lettuce,
kind
yeah,
of
that's a
like,
thing.
what is it, salmonella outbreak on lettuce at least once a year, from what I
Yeah.
remember.
It turns out that some of that's actually just humans contaminating the fields because they don't have sanitary facilities. And
Well,
then,
and I think plants are harder to keep. I mean, if you have a cut of meat in the fridge, I mean, we understand the histamine issue, but like in your fridge, after being cooked or even before, your mushrooms will go rotten before your
Yeah.
steak does, provided temperature and all that. I mean, that's what happened to me. When I started carnivore, I was doing like mushrooms and zucchini on it, just because out of habit and stuff like that.
right.
And then I started just eating the steak, and then my zucchini and my mushrooms went bad in the fridge. And then I was just like, oh, well, I've just been eating the steak anyway, so just didn't bite it again. It was pretty simple at that point. But yeah, I mean, you can dry age meat. You can't really dry age, a piece of lettuce. It will just fall apart and become inevitable,
Unedible. Yeah.
yes, very
Yeah. Or
quickly.
if you my garbage, used to, when I was a vegan, it used to smell really bad. I hardly could stand it, and now it's nothing because there is no rotten food from the veggies. The leftovers, when you peel it, it will rot in your garbage. It doesn't now, as carnivore, my garbage doesn't smell anymore. It's or I once got food poisoning from organic carrot salad. It was still expiry date was fine. I ate it and immediately it was so bad. And then for several days, and then what saved me was activated charcoal. That was my savior, but it was so bad. Food poisoning from organic carrots. So
I actually
never
got food poisoning in a hospital one time.
Who?
I was visiting somebody at the
Oh.
hospital when I was a kid with the family. We actually ate in the cafeteria, and we all got food poisoning at the hospital. So
Gosh, at the hospital. Great.
Do you remember what you had?
scallops.
Oh, scallops from a hospital? That
Scallops.
should have been a sign. What?
I was a kid. I didn't
Yeah, you would not eat scallops from a hospital.
No, sitting there in a steam tray. It was like scallops and mashed potatoes or something. And yeah, we were all sick as dogs. The whole family was just throwing up on each other.
Yeah, I would imagine they probably did not keep the scallops cool enough. Well, the whole thing with this whole food sanitary thing, it started, I believe, in the late 1800s with a reporter that was trying to do a report on workers' rights inside the meat processing factories and
I think
stuff
you're
like
talking
that.
about Upton Sinclair.
The Upton Sinclair jungle.
The jungle, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing
Right.
is, it's fiction. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
I taught that in
fiction.
school.
Right. That's
That was
fiction.
in school. That was in my textbook, man.
so yeah, we had to read it in school too. So as it turns out, he wasn't really trying to promote sanitary food as much as he was
No.
trying to push socialism, right?
Right.
He wa-
Right.
Yeah.
It was a communist piece, you know, and it was all about workers' rights and not
Right.
about food quality. And it had a greater effect, but it was fiction, so we don't really know. They're talking about like, oh yeah, Bob accidentally got turned into ham, you know, or you know, so and so their feet got pickled, you know. That's and we don't really know what went on. I'm sure all kinds of shady stuff went on. I remember they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna make strawberry jam out of rotten apples, or we're gonna put aniline dye in it, and I remember all that from that. And then you as an adult, you're like, what? That wasn't real? Oh my God, we had to write papers about how progressive we are now that we don't torture people in food factories.
So wait, just to clarify, none of that, or we don't know. He
Well, kind of. I mean, they did have poor sanitary conditions in some of those plants. So he even talked about some human meat or somebody's finger would be in there, and rats or whatever. But there was no proof of that. How about that? So he did fictionalize a lot of it.
Today I learned.
Well, I think he wrote about his disappointment, the effect that the book had.
Well, yeah. Well, the quote is he was trying to hit them in the heart and he hit them in the stomach. So then people, that was the famous quote,
Right. There you go. Well, anyways, anybody else got anything else they wanted to cover before we wrap it up?
Yeah, well, we have not covered what actually can lead to leaky gut.
Oh yeah, well, I think I touched on it a little bit. I mean, but we probably did forget a few things. So, like, that's one of the reasons why we tend to avoid supplements, right? Because a lot of the things in capsules and pills are designed to go through the gut wall into the bloodstream, and that can cause leaky gut. The seed oils or vegetable oils can thin out the mucosal layer, and that removes some of the protectant. Did you have some more to add to that?
Yeah, there is quite a lot to add.
Go for it. That's what we're here for.
So the famous antibiotics. Then you have the massive sugar consumption, carbs, lectins, as we said, gluten, and then ibuprofen, those.
Yeah. So I
and
don't know about
the famous oxalates.
Right.
They
That's
will
I
pierce
think
through the gut wall, and then
I think Ayani, if you could remove anything from the world and snap your fingers like Thanos style, I think you would remove oxalates from the world.
Yeah.
Every time you talk about them, I hear the hatred and disdain and the sound of your voice of oxalates. You just want them destroyed. But I just want to piggyback on lectins. One of the things that terrified me in this space that you don't hear about unless I think you're in the keto or the carnivore space, or you just so happen to be a huge fan of Paul Mason, is lectins leaking into the gut and moving their way into your brain. Like that's terrifying.
That's terrifying, yes.
So scary. That's the most that's horror movie level, like alien level of like villainy. Like just
I can kind of talk about that for a second. So there's a procedure called a vagotomy where they cut the vagus nerve, which runs through the digestive tract to the brain. And I believe it was in Holland that they had kept these records on these vagotomies. And some of them, they completely sever the nerve from the brain to the digestive tract. And some of them, they just cut the nerve in certain places. So certain parts of the digestive tract aren't connected directly to the brain anymore. And they realized that some of these people did not get Parkinson's disease, or they got it at a much lower rate. So then somebody did a test where they took fluorescent protein and tagged lectins, which lectins are a plant protein. That's something that's rich in like peanuts or peanut butter. I was just talking about this with a friend the other day. And they realized that those proteins were traveling up the vagus nerve and collecting in the brain and appear to be causing Parkinson's or Parkinson's-like um, symptoms in people. So, and they did that original study with fluorescent tagging in dogs, but dogs seem to be susceptible to it just like human beings are. So, just like you said, sounds like something out of a horror movie. It's like, how could a little protein molecule travel along a nerve and go from your digestive tract to your brain? It sounds like some sort of like crazy plot or something, like some evil scientist came up with it, but it's just something that happens in nature that's kind of terrifying.
Right. And my assumption is that's my number one go-to for why you should not eat something. Like, like we get the oxalates. Like, I think everyone has their mortal plant enemy. And I think similarly to oxalates, I think for me, mine are lectins, just because they're terrifying. And all the black beans, the kidney beans, the pinto beans I used to have, because it's gluten-free. A lot of people that are paleo or vegetarian, they have a lot of beans. You do a black bean patty, that's all lectins. And like they count that as protein, but it's like, it's so bad for you.
Yeah,
like
let me comment on that real quick, because I was thinking about this the other day. There was a study where well, we talk about COVID-19 all the time, right? Because we all live in lockdowns of one state or another. And one of the things they say is if you have plenty of zinc in your diet, your immune system will be stronger. You're less likely to succumb to that, right? And one of the great sources of zinc is oysters, right? We were talking about shellfish earlier. Now, they did a study where they fed people oysters with black beans, and the people absorbed a small fraction of the zinc from the oysters when they ate the black beans. So we see that not only do things like lectins potentially cause serious health problems, but other things like phytic acid and fiber in the beans actually bind up nutrients and prevent us from absorbing them. So there you go. If you could just eat that raw oyster without the black beans, scientific studies show that you will absorb more zinc, and when your zinc levels are higher, or at least not inadequate, your immune system will be stronger.
Yeah, that's one more reason to actually do the carnivore thing to heal your body, because then nothing will inhibit the uptake of nutrients.
Only thing I have to say about oysters, if you go to the store to get oysters, try and get yourself a shucker, because opening those oysters without a shucker is kind of painful. I did use a sledgehammer on a couple of them. They're all like covered with barnacles and stuff. They're like impenetrable. So I got out the old 20-pounder and until I got them open, because they're sold out of shuckers at the store.
Was there more on leaky gut, Ayani?
Yeah, I mean, then you have also the stress issue, of course. So you should do everything to avoid stress, which means emotional stress, environmental stress. And then your circadian rhythm should be in order. And then also you should actually have a lot of oxygen, so go into nature, do things like that. And in the end, everybody has to focus on those probiotics and fix the gut like that. But there is a lot of information that points to mitochondrial dysfunction. So you should actually resolve that issue first. And there is the cell danger response, which Dr. Robert Navio has done some studies on it, which is very interesting. So whenever your mitochondria sense danger, they go into this cell danger response. Normally they get out of it, but sometimes they stay stuck in it because there is still that trigger. So you have to identify those triggers and remove them, and only then will you get out of the cell danger response, and then you can heal. Otherwise, you cannot really heal because you're stuck in this cell danger response. So just saying, it's also important to look after your mitochondria. And so, yeah, we did a thiamine video the other day. So this is one possibility, megadose thiamine. But then there are many other triggers that you also have to identify.
Yeah, and carnivore helps with most of that. I mean, I feel, and we've all talked about more adapted to our environments after going carnivore, you know, always too hot, always too cold, sweating too much, or getting sunburns and stuff like that, or just general stress. I feel like, you know, we've talked about it before, that not having those sugar spikes and sugar lows,
Exactly.
and
No
not being
inflammation.
right, and not being food obsessed and all that, you're able to really focus on work or a good workout, or, you know, if you're out on a hike, you're not hungry because, you know, you're just able to look at, you know, you don't have to. So, you know, I go out hiking pretty often, and I always see people grabbing a granola bar or something on their hike, or like a protein bar or something like that. Or people, you know, there's that brand, was it Cliff, and it shows that cartoon or the drawing of the guy who's hanging off that cliff or whatever, and so it looks like a healthy, you know, bar. And I think there's soy lecithin and all this kind of stuff in those Cliff bars, you know. And it's like, if you just had some fat or just had a little bit of cut of raw steak before going on this hike, you would not need that Cliff bar, you know.
Yeah,
So
you would need it.
right, exactly. And, you know, just, so I was diagnosed with leaky gut actually by a naturopath, and she gave me this weird concoction of some kind of herbs or something, and they did nothing but make me very sick, you know? And that's another thing too, and is that, you know, if you're still trusting your doctor, I mean, okay, but I I saw all the doctors, from naturopaths to ear, nose, and throat, to infection specialists, to neurologists, to chiropractors, you know, you name it, I've seen it up and down every floor of hospitals, you know, and I kind of only continue to decline pretty much, you know, until carnivore and this world. So if you still want to keep going down that road, I guess, but I've been there. Doesn't lead nowhere. It really doesn't. And another thing too, leaky gut, one of the number one offenders is pharmaceuticals. You know, you can take so much ibuprofen. I don't know if you ever did this, Ayani, but with the migraines, I was popping Excedrin and 800, 600 ibuprofens almost daily.
Wow.
I did that for a few years until, like, when I would take it, my stomach would be in so much pain that, like, my head would stop hurting, but my stomach would be like wrecked for the rest of the day. And I'd have to pop then Pepto-Bismol to get my stomach to settle down so I could go to sleep, or so that I could eat. And then I switched to aloe vera juice because I knew the Pepto-Bismol was bad for me. So when I say I've done everything, I truly have done everything, you know.
You know, and you mentioned ibuprofen. I was taking naproxen, which is kind of a similar product, and it really is what drove my psoriasis into overdrive. And you know, it's not like the doctors or any of those people said, "Oh, it might be the naproxen that's making it so bad." I was
Never
just
say that.
reading warnings that where I found it. So go ahead, yeah. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, they never tell you the side effects, or just you have to do your research yourself. And yeah, I have my own experience with ibuprofen, but not that bad. But I know it's not so good. And if you have a histamine intolerance, then actually taking ibuprofen is counterproductive. So I try to tune it down and take it as little as possible.
I heard willow bark is the equivalent of ibuprofen.
Well,
Have you
that's where aspirin originally came
Aspirin,
from.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good pain reliever and all that, but it oftentimes makes people vomit. So they would make like a tea from a certain type of willow tree, and it was known to be an effective pain reliever, and I think fever reducer too. But it tastes really bad and gives you a sour stomach apparently. So, but if you're gonna try it, let me know because I'm curious. I don't know if anybody's actually tried it.
Mm.
I have no interest.
We have some, and I've tried it, but I don't really get headaches, so it doesn't matter.
So you bought like in a prepared form, like at the store or something? Willow bark?
Yeah, Vita Cost. Yeah.
Ray, I know you had some really bad digestive issues. Did you ever take over-the-counter medications a lot, or was yours mostly just from food that caused your issues, you think, and food and stress?
I think it was food. Yeah. Stress, I don't think so.
Yeah, I
But-
don't think of stress when I think of Ray. So
Yeah. I doubt it's stress. I mean, my leaky gut was more like, I guess it has to be leaky gut. I mean, because of the diverticulitis. So it was always inflamed. You know, I had constant constipation. Every now and again, I'd have these massive bouts of diarrhea, including bloody stools. So I'm guessing that's all caused to leaky gut.
yeah, you raise a good point. I mean, you had essentially inflammatory bowel disease, and that puts you at much higher risk of cancer than eating red meat ever did in any study. So for people out there worried about eating red meat and bowel cancer, just think about that. If you have problems in your digestive tract and it's inflamed, that puts you at much higher risk. And that's one of the things we found just eating meat, these inflammatory situations in our bodies, and especially the digestive tract, seem to go away when we just eat meat.
Yeah, but I can't say I've got a doctor's stamp saying, hey, yeah, this is definitely what I have. So I didn't do that. So
Yeah, it showed up when I did that full body scan. They saw some what do you call it? Diverticuli in the scan, which I didn't even know I had. So someday I'll do that scan again, and hopefully it'll all be gone. So,
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. I don't know. I'm at the point. I know it's strange, but I'm at the point where I don't even really care as long as I feel good, and which I do. So I'm like, do I want to go check up and do that anal probe that they do? What's that called again?
colonoscopy.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I love data myself. I was all into testing, measuring everything, and Sean Baker's. I was like, so tell me which test tells you you're healthy. Which test is that? And then there's so many things where we don't really know what the range is for people who are eating the diet we do anyways. Or we've all had these discussions about even RDAs. So what recommended daily values are we supposed to have of any one nutrient? It's kind of not really well formulated. So looking at tests and even getting body scans and stuff like that, it's hard to say whether the value is actually there or not. Maybe sometime in the future we'll know, but yeah, I seem to care about that stuff less and less all the time myself.
I think if your blood sugar is low, I mean, that will actually tell you it's okay.
Yeah.
So if it's, you know, if
And
you
by
don't have
low, she means normal.
diabetes, then probably you are healthy.
Yeah. I'm also on the thinking that, look, if it's not broken, what are you trying to do at that point? I'm actually scared going into the doctor one day and they break something. Because a lot of their tests are pretty invasive. Yeah, I don't mind blood work and all, but colonoscopy, I've read a lot of horror stories on it. So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think medicine is the third leading cause of death, right? So it goes right behind like heart attacks.
Car accidents. Yeah. That's what I've heard. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they call it practicing medicine for a reason, right?
Wait, but the worst part, Tom, is from accidental death. So accidental death, and only that's subject to the people who actually were in the hospital at the time of death. They don't even include the ones that went home. Let's say they went home an hour later and died. They don't include that. And it has to be an accident.
Yeah, so people die unexpectedly, even when medications or procedures are done properly. And then there's the ones where things are accidentally administered improperly.
Right.
And then I knew somebody when I was a kid, she had cancer and her first chemo treatment killed her. So,
No way.
Yeah.
Man, that's sad.
Yeah. So, and
way to break down the room, Tom. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who was just going through chemo, and when she was at treatment, there was some lady just screaming her head off because it burned so bad. Like that, that happened to some people, and they give them the really powerful, I mean, chemotherapy is essentially a poison that you take that hoping that it kills more cancer than other cells. But some people have a reaction where they feel it burning in their veins, right? So people are literally like screaming in agony until they can get through that. So this is not a pleasant topic, but back to the mitochondria, it seems like a lot of cancer might actually come from mitochondrial dysfunction from eating the wrong food, right?
Yeah, we can't guarantee, well, no one can guarantee any particular health, in the future. But what we do know about cancer is that people respond much easier to cancer treatment on keto, fasting, and carnivore. So that's something. Unfortunately, I guess unless I go expose myself to some radiation, I don't know. Give me 50 grand. I'll go down to Chernobyl, hang out. Let's go live on Chernobyl, guys. Come on. Do it.
Here's the thing, a lot of physicians has this mentality that those that we just described, carnivore, keto, all that should be last on the list. There was even, you guys watched Fat the documentary, right?
Yeah.
You remember that part where that doctor knew about the ketose to stop the convulsions, the seizures for his son.
Epilepsy.
He knew that getting him in ketosis would prevent the epilepsy. But he's like, well, we haven't tried everything yet. You haven't tried killing him yet? Oh yeah.
Let's try everything else before we try changing our diet, right?
Right.
Let's take another pill. Let's do another treatment before we try changing our diet, right?
Just craziness.
Sad.
Yeah, it really is sad.
And that's the thing. It's like when I first was on keto and I was having great success, that's some of the reaction I got from some of the medical professionals I know. It's like, oh, but keto is so hard. It's so difficult. And I was thinking, this is the easiest diet I ever tried. What are you talking about? It wasn't that tough. And it's not the same for everybody. We all have different challenges, but it's certainly not a reason not to mention it to people, right? Because a lot of people jump on it and go, oh, that sounds good. Let me give it a try, and a lot of people are going to be successful. Right?
Most people like butter, and most people like meat and bacon. I mean,
see, I want to mention this. That's the thing. So everybody keeps thinking keto is actually easier than carnivore, and that's such a blatant lie. It's like, what I mean?
I'd say carnivore is easier, but
way easier.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you, right?
And that's what we need to say. Like, look, if you got problems with willpower, you got problems with food addiction, keto might not work for you, but carnivore more than likely will. It did for me.
I think keto is appealing to people because there's all those substitute foods.
Right.
You know,
no, I know. I get
fat
it.
bombs and fake bread.
Well, that's the addiction.
That's the
I mean,
addiction. Exactly.
That's not them eating for health. That's, they want to have their cookies and, you know, ice cream and, you know, whatever else. But if you follow Becky Niles on Instagram, she's got tons of little neat stuff. I mean, what she
Neat
make
little recipes,
muffins, and she's always making the tallow ice cream, and you know, we've done bacon ice cream. Like there's even a recipe for us Latin folk, for, you know, tamales that are carnivore. You know, like people are getting insanely creative, and hey, it's going to happen. There's going to be a company that's going to come, or one of our friends is going to come out with a muffin or something that's made from egg and like cheese, you know, or whatever, maybe a little bit of tallow, maybe throw some beef in there somehow. That's going to be sold on store shelves at your local Whole Foods or whatever. I guarantee you it's going to happen. And that will be the true revolution. Then nobody has no excuses. Everybody can be carnivore then, you know?
Well, I'm still holding out hope they resurrect those mammoths, you know. Still, I know that one guy's still working on it, so we might be sharing a giant mammoth ribeye one of these days. I'm just saying. Speaking of mammoth, I looked at the container of mammoth. We called it ice cream, but it's actually frozen custard. And you know what it's made out of? It's cream and butter with egg yolks.
Wow.
Well, there's xylitol too.
Yeah, there is xylitol in it, and vanilla bean.
They gotta put some sweetener.
Yeah, but yeah.
That's pretty good still.
Oh, we're gonna corner the market with a bacon flavor though.
There we go.
Maybe a
well,
flavor.
I ate the chocolate one yesterday and I'm still good. I had about a quarter container. I did have trouble stopping, I will admit.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. Don't eat the whole container. It's a little rich.
Yeah, maybe we could get a sponsorship by Mammoth. We should
hit
shoot them an email. Yeah, get someone on from the company. Anyway, that's inside baseball. Sorry about that, audience. We probably should have shut this video down like 20 minutes ago, but all right. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, no excuses. That's the point, is that if there's any food that you're craving, you can make it carnivore. Waffles, pancakes, muffins, ice cream. Yeah, it can all be carnivore.
Justin and I made chaffles or waffles one time, and well, by the time we made them, we pretty much like, yeah, I'd rather just eat steak. But so, but we did try it, right?
You have to try it. Yeah, but then for in regards to food addiction, I mean, I was such a sugarholic. I was so addicted to chocolate and cookies. Everything was chocolate, and that addiction totally went away with carnivore. And I think when you become fat adapted in a mild ketosis state, then you no longer have those cravings. At least for me, everything went away. So something switches. You don't have those sugar highs anymore, and your system is not stressed. So probably I think the fat adaptation is really great for curing your addictions.
Yeah, it seemed like some of my friends too, like they went low carb, sort of keto, leaning towards carnivore, and they noticed that they were drinking a lot less beer and stuff. Like they just didn't feel like drinking as much as they did. You know, they drink a lot on the weekend typically, and they found themselves drinking very little. So
yeah, and I think it's because carnivore does a full body reset. Your dopamine is working better. Your melatonin's working better. all those little, because you're basically a walking continuous chemistry experiment, basically. And so everything we put in, we absorb, and it has a chemical effect on us. And it's what carnivore does is it resets, rebalances all that chemistry throughout your body, and most importantly, the brain. And if your dopamine levels are able to stabilize, you're not going to want beer or other substances or have to engage in destructive behavior, because you already feel good just being yourself. And every carnivore, at least ones I've met, always get into exercise, or they work like 12-hour days because they just like to just get in there and wreck it, and you get that natural dopamine hit from working out or just taking names and kicking ass at work, and they love it. They're so much happier.
Yep, good point, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that brings me back to that point I like to make, that I think diet's more important than exercise. It's a diet that facilitates and inspires the exercise, right? If your diet's not wrong, you can't out exercise the wrong diet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point. All right, so shall we kill this one here?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Make sure and send the link to this video to somebody who might benefit from it. Give us the old thumbs up, hit the little like button, subscribe to the channel. It's very important you make sure you don't get unsubscribed. It happens. And get the little notification bell so you know when videos are coming out. Fortunately, I've been able to get quite a few of the backlog videos out. They're almost all up. I think they're all, the backlog is up. But I do have to sit on these and wait a little bit to make sure that YouTube doesn't demonetize them, because a lot of times what happens, I put a video up, they demonetize it, everybody watches it, then I say, hey, why'd you demonetize it? They're like, oh, sorry, we'll remonetize it. But then by then most of the viewing's already been done, and so there's no incentive, right? No financial incentive. So I do get them uploaded and leave them unlisted until I'm sure they're going to monetize it. So there's just a little bit of a delay there. But anyways, just so everybody knows, when they participate in one of these videos, so they hear they're coming out and there's a little delay, that's why. But we appreciate everybody watching and listening. I hope you leave some comments, and we hope you eat some meat and you feel better, and whatever you do,
Don't fall down the carb hole.